Howdy, and welcome to the Dog-Eared Discourse podcast. This episode is part of our mini-series where we each recommend books we love to our fellow hosts and listeners. I'm Chris, and I want to recommend Foundryside by Robert Jackson Bennett. I found this book because I listened to the YouTube, and there's a person on the YouTube called Elliot Brooks. She did a video called Beginner to Advanced Fantasy Recommendations.
I love her.
Yeah.
She's one of my favorite YouTubers.
Yeah, she's great. I was kind of looking for recommendations for books to read in between the books that we're reading, and I'm always interested in new magic systems, and I love varied and complicated magic systems. And one of the books I saw on her list was The Black Prism by Brent Weeks, and that is a great series with an amazing magic system. I've only read the first two, and I need to reread them at this point. On that scale of awesome magic systems was Foundryside. And so I picked it up, and I just ate this book alive. It was really good in that it has a really interesting main character, along with the magic system being complicated but also simple at the same time. It can do a lot of things, the magic system, but there are rules that govern it. And when it breaks the rules, everyone is shocked. It's really amazing.
What are some of the rules of the magic system?
So the way that the magic works in this universe is basically you're scribbling on objects. And when you scribble the right symbols, it convinces the object that something is different in reality. For instance, if you do something correct, like if you scribbled correctly, you could convince an arrow that it was falling straight down when in fact it was going forward. And so it would just continuously accelerate forward and blow holes through ships.
What? That sounds cool.
Or you could scribble on a wheel and convince it that it is going downhill, even though it's not. It's going straight. It's on a flat surface. It's going downhill. So it accelerates, right? And the thing I like the most about this is that humans are new to the magic system. They found some recent ruins, and through archaeological study have found some of the language and have started cobbling things together. So everybody is new to this, but it's old enough that the whole city that this takes place in has scribed objects. So like you'll see scribed lamps, you'll see scribed buildings where you've convinced the wood planks that they're made out of stone instead of wood, so they are stronger.
How can people tell if it's scribed or regular?
So you can generally see it on the thing, but there's the main character, and this is where she's a little bit different. She can hear when there's something that's scribed. It sounds like whispering to her. And so you slowly find out that the main character, Sancha, is different than everyone else in this universe so far that she's met, that anyone else has met, in that she can hear these things. And also, if she touches like a wall, all of a sudden she knows everything about the wall. And no one else seems to have this power. She's never heard of anyone else having these powers.
It's that Celine Dion song, If Walls Could Talk.
Yeah, I mean, it would tell you all about, like, okay, this is the brick that's loose, so if you pull on that, now you have a hole in the wall. And it'll tell you all that stuff. And it's really cool. It's a really neat system, except she gets headaches whenever it happens. And you start slowly learning her past. The city that this takes place in is divided up into these merchant houses. And each one has their own scribing language, which is kind of weird.
That's complex.
Yeah, it starts getting more complex. So like the more you learn about the magic, the weirder it gets.
Is it like a family, like slang?
Well, so here's the thing about the magic system. The symbols that they discovered are relatively simple, right? So they're like go or rock or like some nouns, some verbs, things like that. But then they discovered one of the symbols that says meaning. And what they did with that was they would put a whole string, like a sentence together, where it would actually cause something to happen. And they would say meaning, and they would make one symbol. And then whenever they used that symbol close to that sentence, like anywhere in the city, then it would know what to do with that as if it was that whole sentence. So it's basically like writing a sub-procedure in a code.
I was like, it sounds like programming.
Yeah. And so literally that's how the houses work, is they program different things. And so they have 4 different programming languages, kind of. And then what they talk about is how there's these big, they call them lexicons, where they basically are just a bunch of sentences. And it's powered on, and it like warps reality around it, because that's what these things are doing. They're warping reality. And
that is so wild.
And so the more you learn about this, the cooler the magic system is. And then you find out that we don't know crap about what we're doing.
You're just in the sandbox playing with the toys that were left over.
Yeah, we're basically crudely making caveman art. Mm-hmm. And then the main character discovers like the Mona Lisa.
Wait, so if our household, being you and me,
yeah,
and their household, being Danny and Juan,
mm-hmm.
if so, we say they had the same sentence, and we said equals triangle, and they said equals circle. If we just went around, would it know which one to do?
Yeah,
so there be multiple instances.
Well, they're complicated enough that you're not going to, like, they make them like little pictures. So that way,
I thought that like the original sentence was like already imbued into the thing. Like if it's like the lamp, for example.
Well, what they do is they put that sentence on the lexicon, and then they say equals this triangle in that instance. Mm-hmm. And then from now on, I'm going to put triangle on all the lamps.
And if we do the same thing, we say equal circle, it's just a different variable.
Yeah.
So it has the same meaning, but in our house, we use the circle. In your house, you use a triangle. So we don't understand each other's
What if we both
lingo.
use circles, but we told it to do different things?
Then it would mean something
somebody
different.
just writes a circle. How does it know who's writing it?
It's whichever lexicon is closer.
Oh, okay.
So like each of them have a certain amount of power, and they power a certain region, right? So that makes the power of this city limited, that you have a lexicon that it can only power what's in the city. And then someone figures out, okay, I can make a portable lexicon. Mm. Now, lexicons are huge, giant things, because they say that the definitions for these sentences, these things for like making a wheel go downhill, might be 2 volumes of books thick that you have to scribe perfectly. And if you get one little thing wrong, everything goes to heck.
This reminds me of the manga that I had Kelly read. I don't know, did you end up reading any of it, Chris? Mm-hmm. It's called Witch Hat Atelier. I don't know the author right now, or the artist is absolutely gorgeous, but it's a children's book where they're like little witches running around, and they have to like scribe perfectly for the symbols in order to do individual magic things for things to happen. And if your artwork isn't perfect, something else happens, and you never know. Yeah.
Yeah, that was my question, is whether it was like binary, either it is or it isn't, or if you screwed up just enough.
Well, they do talk about early days of scribing, where they're trying to make the wheel go downhill, and they forgot to tell it how to stop.
Oops.
And so they do exactly what they were looking to do. It just goes through the next building. Yeah. Another thing that they were talking about is where they were trying to manipulate gravity, and you need to have a good understanding of the laws of reality in order to break the laws of gravity. And it talks about, okay, I'm going to try and lift myself up, and it rips the person in half, right? So, or it crushes them into the size of a marble, because gravity, it can be very strong.
Oh, God.
And so they talk about
things got real quick.
I was gonna say that kind of reminds me. Do you remember when we went to that Oddities and Curiosities fair, and they had all of those jewelry that you can make with people's blood? That's what that reminds me of. Except like that's like an extreme. I could make that I could, if that was real, I could make jewelry with an entire person instead of
Yeah.
just a little dog.
Exactly. It would be a very, very tiny person.
Those are called
that.
shrunken heads, Kelly.
Nah,
I like
it'd
it.
be like a little marble.
So aside from the magic system, this book is also hits one of my key things, which is I always love crime. I love a good heist.
Oh,
I
okay.
love stealing something. Main character's a thief.
Very cool.
A strong female character who is also a thief.
Yeah.
Okay. Who also is the only one who can do what she does.
Yep.
Okay.
The one thing I would say that
Yeah.
I got one of the older covers, and I'm glad that they went to a newer cover, because the cover shows a pale lady walking in the mist on this book, but they very clearly say that she's dark skinned
Oh.
on like
What?
page 28. They
Yeah,
never
but-
mention it again, but she was also a slave for a bit of time, so that was kind of a big deal in her backstory.
Yeah.
If you didn't know that, the cover is objectively awesome.
So it
Yeah.
looks really cool.
However, it's extremely misrepresenting the main character. So
if
what the heck?
that is the main character, because there is another character that could be
Oh.
that is that you find out about later. But
Okay.
so that could be a different character. But the main character is Sancha. She's a thief. She's got weird powers. You're trying to figure out her backstory. She's not very forthcoming with them because she's in this city where you have these big merchant houses, right? And the city itself is divided by these merchant houses. You're not allowed to go into their areas, but you do need to do commerce between them. And so there's these giant walls, and in between them, there's these streets where there's nobody who pays for anything, as in there's no infrastructure, there's no roads, there's barely any houses because people can scrap them together. The houses have no vested interest in keeping the people inside the city alive unless they're inside their house. And there's no government to speak of that oversees the entire city.
Wild.
And so you have these poor people who are basically like shadow runners who are like, I need to make some money. How do I make some money? I'm going to go steal from a house, or I'm going to go steal from the docks, or I'm going to go stab someone in the alley because it's just a dead body, right? I mean, their morality is survival.
Yeah.
And she goes to steal a thing from the docks, and it goes okay. There's some bumps in the road, and then she's on the run after that. And it's really hard not to say what happens next, but she does meet an interesting cast of characters. You learn about the houses through one of the houses. You learn about the magic system through experts in the magic system. You learn about her past through her explaining to people why she's trying to kill a certain person. In the moment, she tries to kill another main character. And she doesn't do too good at it because she's like just trying to strangle him, kind of goes nuts in the instant, which is great. That scene was amazing.
What?
I love that scene.
Don't tell us too much.
So there's a lot of good characters, and there's a lot of political intrigue without going too much into the political intrigue. It's like you can see things are working in the background, but it like glosses. It basically no one's close enough to really matter when it comes to that. You encounter a couple other characters that are really cool. So the characters are well developed. They have interesting backgrounds. They're not too like the main character has a traumatic background, but the other characters are not like everybody's not super trauma. So it's pretty cool. And then near the end of it, they introduce some hints towards what's coming up next. So I really liked it. It was a page turner. I didn't put it down, and I can't recommend it enough.
Yeah, it sounds really great. Like I like the idea of, it kind of sounds like it's like almost like a coming of age or like a traveling story where she's in one place and ends up in a completely different socioeconomic status, and that's very intriguing for me.
Yeah, I always like the tales of somebody discovering they have powers, but there is nobody else that has them.
Yeah, I think that I like that part about it a lot. It's like she's just stating what these powers are. Like as she's doing this initial heist. She's telling you about like what she can do because you're kind of experiencing it with her. And then you start learning that there's no one else like that.
Yeah.
And it's pretty neat.
Trying to explain it like, do you guys hear that? Like,
No.
what are you talking
Well,
about?
the thing is, she doesn't want to talk to anybody about it.
Yeah.
Right? Because
It's kind of dangerous.
if nobody's
Oh,
talking
yeah.
about it, and so in a world where the magic system is basically corporations patenting things, and you have a magical ability, what's the last thing you want the corporations to find out about? Because they will hunt you down, they will tie you down to a table, and they will experiment on you until they figure out how you tick. It's like the government coming and grabbing the people with superpowers on the next level, because there's no oversight.
There's no
Nice.
government.
There's no government, there's only the houses, and you are powerless against them. Dun dun dun.
That sounds crazy.
I really like political intrigue, actually, and I like strong female characters, and I like thieves a lot, and I like magic systems that I've never seen before, so all of this sounds really interesting.
Yeah, they really went into the technical on some of the magic system part of it, but they do it in such a way that they have an expert explaining it to someone who is definitely not educated in this system. So it really helps.
And I like technicalities.
Yeah.
So there you go, another checkbox marked.
Or I'm just like, I'm here for the ride.
Like, no, tell me the math behind what your magic system is, please. This is important to me.
So I would highly recommend Foundryside by Robert Jackson Bennett. And I would also highly recommend, if you haven't watched on YouTube, Elliot Brooks, go check her out. She's great. She's amazing. She has great recommendations, and she's really articulate, much more than I am. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks. That was a great recommendation.